Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Naz Beheshti, the author of Pause, Breathe, Choose, Become the CEO of Your Well-Being. She is an executive wellness coach, speaker, Forbes contributor, CEO, and founder of Prananaz, a corporate wellness company improving leadership effectiveness, employee well-being and engagement, and company culture. Some of her clients include Google, Facebook, Nike, and JP Morgan Chase. Her work has been widely featured in the media, including CNBC, Forbes, BBC, and many more. Naz also co-founded Rise to Shine, a nonprofit helping to alleviate the suffering of young children in Haiti. Naz, it's great to have you here on the Voice of Influence podcast.
Thank you for having me, Andrea.
So your book releases at such an important time. Congratulations on this book. So many people are feeling the weight of chronic stress. And, it brought on by pandemic, some of these social justice concerns and political unrest. There's just so much going on. Many people are exhausted and teetering on really falling on over the edge of burnout. So what led you to write this book now? Why now?
Well, it's interesting that it's come out at this time when it's so timely. However, I actually started writing it back in 2014. So it was a long time ago that I started. It took me about a year to write it. And then it just took time to get it out into the world. However, even back then, it was really timely and needed because people were just completely stressed, burnt out. Now there's just more reason to be stressed and burnt out, but stress was always prevalent. And working with executives and leaders, I had always found that was like the common denominator with everyone was burnout, was stress, and people not having the proper tools and strategies to be able to cope and not just like survive, but thrive under, challenging situations and when faced with adversity. And being in corporate America, working in different companies before starting my own company, I learned that there weren't the tools and support in the companies. There was no corporate wellness, employee well-being programs. So I took it upon myself once I realized this wellness gap in society and in organizations to start my own company.
It sounded like you have seen now over the years, you've seen corporate wellness programs kind of come and go. And maybe some of them go over pretty well and they're effective and maybe some aren't. Do you have any insights to share about what makes a corporate wellness program actually successful?
That is a great question because not all corporate wellness programs are created equally. And what really hurts people and companies like ours is that when a company goes in to implement a corporate wellness, employee well-being program and it doesn't work, then that company believes that corporate wellness programs don't work because it didn't work for them. However, it depends on how the program is designed, how it's implemented, and who actually participates. So what I have found is my company Prananaz does a very comprehensive assessment, corporate wellness assessment, to really understand the needs, the challenges of their company, their organization, and their employees so that I can build a employee wellness program based on their specific needs and their goals, right? And one company's needs and goals can be very different from another company's needs and goals. And a lot of corporate wellness programs are cookie cutter, one size fits all programs, which does not work, right? So Prananaz has this corporate wellness assessment, which really determines what is needed. And then once we're able to create that very tailored program for that specific company, their company culture, their demographics, their goals, like I said, and their needs, then it's about implementation and how it's implemented. And getting buy-in and participation from the top is crucial, right? This is no longer an, siloed HR issue or responsibility. It is leadership. And when leadership is participating and involved, and even the launch of the program comes from the CEO of the company, like a company-wide email from the CEO sharing the launch of the employee wellness program, it creates such a greater impact than if it were to come from head of HR. Just think about working in a company and you get an email. It's not often from the CEO, depending on how big the company is. But when you get an email from the CEO, you're going to open it, you're going to read it. And if it's important enough for the CEO to send an email, company-wide email out, then the people reading it, receiving it on the other end, the employees will also, believe and hopefully, realize that it is important and that they should participate in the program and take it seriously. So buy-in from the top and participation from the top, from the leaders, is crucial.
So I totally get the buy-in from the top. I love this idea of the email. What about participation? How do leaders at the top communicate their participation in something like this? How do people know that they're participating?
Well, so a lot of the wellness programs offer workshops or, company-wide competitions, and just having them be a part of it, like showing up to the workshops or being part of the competition, is just leading by example. So they'll actually see it, and or they are welcome. And what's very effective is for them to share that I plan to participate, and our team, the leadership team, is very excited and looking forward to participating in X, Y, and Z. Maybe they can't participate in every single thing because there's a lot of, different events and workshops, but to kick it off, share what they are going to participate in and actually show up to those things, and lead by example.
Yeah, I find that to be a similar need with other culture initiatives, other trainings. If you really want people to believe that you're in it, you got to show them that you show up and show how you've shown up. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into your book a little bit. In the preface, you start by sharing about the impact that Steve Jobs had on you while working closely with him. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you said was, one of the many crucial lessons Steve taught me was this: never settle for less, no matter what obstacles you face. And these words have defined my character. Would you tell us a little bit about the work that you did with Steve Jobs and the impact of his mentorship on your life, your perspective?
Yeah. So working with him side by side as my first job out of college was just an experience of a lifetime. I witnessed firsthand how Steve, an iconic visionary, as we all know him to be, lived his mantra of, the only way to do great work is to love what you do, right? He was so passionate about what he did. And he, inspired me to have the courage to follow my heart and intuition and really unleash my creative side, to think outside the box, which really paved the path to where I am today. Because back then, when I started corporate wellness and executive coaching, it was a very, very nascent industry over a decade ago. So I had to really create my own company and, not have a role model of like, oh, they're doing something cool, let me, also do something like similar to that, or, jump on that bandwagon. I really had to create it on my own and realize that where the gaps are and fill those gaps. And Steve had a huge influence on that, because he was always, doing the same and showing up as, his best self, and very, very creative. And, even in the products that he created, who would have known that we all are going to be addicted and need a mini size computer in our pockets back then? Like, he kept innovating and realizing what people would need and want before they even knew what they needed and wanted, right? Because he had that vision. And so back then, I was able to also have that vision to know that employee well-being and executive coaching was needed and was going to be even, more needed as the years went by. Because as you see, like, even there's just so much going on in the world that type of support is crucial in terms of being able to show up as your best self. So he really inspired me to do that and think outside the box and follow my heart and my intuition to create Prananaz.
So you said that this was a job right out of college. I mean, do you mind everybody's probably sitting here wondering, how did you get that job and what exactly was the job?
Yeah, so it was a job that I happened to get by accident. I was working on my resume in my home in Santa Cruz. I went to UC Santa Cruz, and my housemate, Samantha, said that she had a friend who was a recruiter and offered to give my resume to him for, I thought was just going to be some feedback, because it was, my first like professional job. And I thought he could help me with my resume. Well, it turns out that he ended up working as an internal recruiter for Apple, and Steve was looking for an EA at the time. And he happened to just like submit my resume. Just, I don't know how or why he thought I would be a good candidate, not, having any experience previously, but maybe they were looking for someone young that they could train and mold, someone green. And anyway, long story short, before I know it, I received a phone call from his office and asking me to come in and interview. And I was just so shocked and like confused as to how they even got my resume and why me. And I decided to just go in for the, pure reason of let me hone in on my interview skills. And this would be great practice. Why not? Like, not expecting that anything at all would come out of it, not being attached to any outcome, because there was no way that he was going to hire me, So I went in, and after 13 very long interviews, I found myself sitting across the boardroom, across the table from, Steve Jobs. And he interviewed me and hired me right on the spot. And it was purely by accident. I actually didn't even want the job, because that was not where I was, envisioning my path would go after getting a degree in psychology. And I also didn't want to work in Cupertino. I was planning to move to San Francisco, and there was no reason for me to actually like go in that direction, except for, okay, Steve Jobs just, offered me a position on the spot. And how do you say no to that at this moment in time? I'm going to accept for a temporary, let's just see how it goes, basically temporary dot on my map, to gain experience, basically. So I did accept the job, and it really was life-changing for me, actually, being his EA. And not just being an EA, it was all the things that he taught me by example, and also just being in his presence every day, that led me to who I am today, professionally and even personally.
How did that, you went from that job to starting your business?
No, I actually worked in many different jobs for about a decade. So I started at Apple, and then I actually went to a tech startup as an EA. And then I went into sales at Yahoo, which was, the Google of its time. And then I worked as a pharmaceutical sales rep at AstraZeneca. So I had a decade worth of different experience from EA to sales roles. And then I decided to start my own company. AstraZeneca was my last corporate job.
Gotcha. And the reason why you decided to start it at that point was you had seen the need for corporate wellness.
Oh, absolutely. And going into doctors' offices every day and realizing how many patients they see. I mean, I would see the check-in list, they use clipboards at the time, and I would see that there were like 20, 30 patients in one day. And I thought, how do these doctors have the time to get to the underlying root of the problem? They don't, because they can't ask questions like, are you sleeping well? What are you eating? What stresses do you have? And all the things that can get to the underlying root of a problem, which stress is typically linked to, right? And so I saw this, again, a wellness gap in society and healthcare and in corporate America. So I was seeing it in all different directions.
All right. So in the book, the subtitle is about being the CEO of your own well-being. What does it mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, for me, well-being is our greatest wealth. So what does success mean to you, to different people? Success means different things to everyone. For me, it's about being well and doing well, right? So you can make all the money in the world, have all these different homes, boats, whatever you can accumulate through financial wealth. However, if you're not well and you have all those things, how do you even enjoy those things? Your well-being is everything, because if not, even those fun things, even like traveling, being with the people you love, being surrounded by all the things you love and people you love, you can't enjoy it. You can't show up as your best self if you are not well, right? So to me, being the CEO of your well-being is stepping up, taking charge, and choosing to live your best life so that you can enjoy whatever successes or success means to you in whatever way that you could fully enjoy, show up, and embody it all, because you have your energy, you have your well-being in all aspects of your life.
I would think that would mean that people need to sometimes we're driven to succeed, we're driven to achieve and to accumulate things for various reasons. I would think that what you're talking about here requires the time and thoughtfulness, mindfulness to step back and say, but wait a second, what do I really want? Mm-hmm. I thought I wanted that. That was going to achieve something for me in my ego, probably some sort of need that I have inside. But is that really is it getting me what I thought I would get? Am I really getting what I want?
Right. And those type of moments of deep reflection typically occur when something unfortunate or tragic happens, when you have some catalyst basically wakes you up and out of your state of autopilot of just doing without actually being, without actually realizing, is this what I want? Am I happy? So when I work with clients and I can feel that they're on autopilot or burnt out, I ask them, when was the last time that you felt really good or happy or energized or doing what you loved? When was the last time you felt that? And typically they have to think quite a lot about it because they can't remember. It wasn't like yesterday or last week or last month. It was, gosh, I don't know how long, way longer than they could remember. Let's just put it at that. And so then that's just obvious that, something needs to change. And typically people don't ask such questions and they don't have the time or mindfulness to actually take a pause, take some breaths and reflect and think about that. Really, if you can wake up every day, which I was just thinking the other day, how grateful I am that I get to wake up every day and just be so incredibly grateful for my life and be able to be well and energized and just full of joy for what I am doing and for my family. That is, for me, that is life. That is the meaning and purpose of life, is to fully be, happy and energized and engaged in your life. Some people are just on autopilot and disengaged. They don't even realize they're getting sick or they are sick or not even going to the doctors because some meeting is more important than their annual checkup. But if they had gone to that annual checkup, they would have found something that, could have been preventable. But, it's just this ripple effect. One bad choice leads to another and to another, and things could be preventable, if you take care of yourself and prioritize your well-being.
I guess I can see what you were saying about that, kind of this long-term autopilot. Do you ever see, or do you ever experience for yourself these shorter periods of being on autopilot, like throughout the day? Maybe there's times when you're on autopilot. Do you ever feel like you are on autopilot, or are you always fully engaged?
No, I mean, there are times that, there's things you do regularly every day and you end up, it takes more energy to realize like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm feeling this, I'm smelling this, I'm, like in touch with all of your senses to be in that moment. You have to be really mindful to do that all the time. The more mindful you are, the more effortless that becomes. But when you're on autopilot more often than not, it takes actually more energy for you to actually realize like, okay, I'm going to become present. And that's why I love pause, breathe, choose, is like, take a pause, like engage in what you're doing. What am I doing right now? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I seeing? I call those mindful self check-ins, right? And I have that actually in my book as like an action step to periodically throughout the day, just take a pause and do a mindful self check-in. I do it all the time. And when I catch myself, sometimes I look out the window and I have a beautiful view of the New York City skyline and I start daydreaming. Like that's my sometimes pause to kind of relax and also take my eyesight away from the computer and just, shift my focus. But then I start, mind wandering and fantasizing and just like going into another world. And then I catch myself and I realize like, oh, okay, I just kind of veered off and I'm not present in the moment. And I just come back and like, oh, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And just taking deep breaths and coming back to the moment. Not to say that mind wandering is bad by any means. It's actually a good release of, gives you energy to release your point of focus from one point of focus or concentrating on one thing to another, right? So it's almost like a way to experience a little bit of downtime. So that's also, could be a positive thing. But to answer your question about the, periodic autopilot, yes, that's totally natural. And, it happens all the time to a lot of people. And just the more you have a mindfulness practice, the less it occurs.
It seems like just even being aware of the fact that there are times when your mind wanders and that maybe there are times when you can bring yourself back to the moment, like that basic concept is just really important for everybody to know. Not that we have to always be present in the moment, that feels hypervigilant to me. That feels almost like too much. I love mind wandering.
Yes.
But I also recognize that if I am mind wandering and there's things going on around me that my kids are trying to talk to me or whatever, sure. Then I have to find that ability to come back and be present again, like you're talking about.
And also that's a great example. Also, when we talk about mind wandering more in a positive state is great, but sometimes it can spiral into a negative state or ruminating over something and create more stress. So that's when you need to like have that mindfulness to realize I'm spiraling, I'm going down the rabbit hole. Like I'm not serving any good by doing this. So let me get out, let me take a pause and stop this at this moment, and become present.
Yeah. Great. Do you have anything else to say about what the pause looks like? Or do you feel like that was pretty well answered?
Yeah, the pause is really just, again, having the foundation of mindfulness to actually know that you want to take a pause or that a pause is going to better serve you. Because when we are on autopilot and not mindful, that pause will just go right by us. Like a pause will not even exist because you won't even be mindful enough to know that you want one or need one at the moment. So being mindful to say, let me take a pause, let me take a mindful breath or multiple breaths, like mindful breathing, that pause and that breath or breaths better equips you to make a better choice. So that's really my mantra, is like pause, breathe, choose better, choose whatever it is. Because in the end of the, day, we are the accumulation of all the choices that we made, right? And we make so many choices every single day. So like I said, one choice begets another. And depending on the choices you make, our lives are dependent on the choices that we make. So really the quality of our lives are dependent on the quality of our choices. So make better choices, and pause and breathing better equips you to make those better choices.
Mm. And is that what the reset is? You say before we can press reset, we have to press pause.
Mm-hmm.
Is the reset the choice that you're making?
The reset is the pause and the breath, because you're coming back to the present moment.
Okay.
The pause is like basically pausing from whatever you were doing.
Yeah.
So that you can become present. The breath is a tool to get you a conscious breath, a mindful breath is the tool to bring you to the present moment so that you can reset. And then the choice is a choice to either self-direct, self-correct if you're, correcting a choice or something, or better directing or guiding you to a better choice. So that is the reset, is the pause and the breath.
Gotcha. Why is it important to you to show up as engaged?
Well, doing corporate wellness programs, research has found that when employees become disengaged, they're not engaged, they are not satisfied, they are not productive, they are not, involved in the community, in the company culture. They're just not engaged and not happy, bottom line. And so I really have focused so much of my employee well-being programs around how do you get employees and people in general engaged, because being disengaged is like letting life or your career work just pass you by. It's like you're sitting on the sidelines being passive rather than being proactive and involved. And so engagement to me is really about showing up and being happy and fulfilled in all areas of your life, not just your work, but everywhere, right? So when you're not engaged, you're basically leaving something on the table that does not allow you to get fulfill your highest potential, right? Because engagement is all about fulfilling your highest potential. It enables you to fulfill your highest potential. When you're disengaged, you're just living subpar and not fully happy. Engagement is like another way of showing that you're happy, you're participating in your life, in the world, in everything, to be engaged.
I find that I really like the fact that you talk about the importance of making a choice in the context of engagement. Mm-hmm. To me, that's one of the things that I'm most interested in is the level of people's understanding of their own agency. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they can make a difference, whether or not they can make a difference in themselves and in their environment. And so the ability to make a choice I think a lot of times we feel like we are victims to our surroundings and mm-hmm. the way that we're being perhaps led. And, but yet you're saying that you still have you can make choices in the middle of this. Is this, am I kind of on track here?
Absolutely. Because it's all about mindset. Maybe some choices, like you feel like you are out of control and you don't have a choice. Like when we have limited choice or no choice, that's a very disempowered state. And sometimes there are times when we feel we really don't have a choice and like we feel hopeless or helpless, right? But even in those states, even though this is harder, it takes more work and more mindfulness and more gratitude, you can train yourself to find the positive and find gratitude and shift your mindset around whatever it is that you think that you may not have any choice around, right? We want the more choices we have without being too overwhelming, but some choices are empowering because you get to make that choice, that better choice for yourself. But without any choice, you still even have a choice. And that choice is your mindset. The choice is to shift your mindset so that you are in a better space mentally and emotionally, because you are in control of that, no one else, right? Yes, other people or circumstances may have control over the circumstance or situation, but not of your mindset, not of your mental and emotional well-being. And that's where I say, take control, even if you think you don't have control. Even in one of the chapters, it's, accept what you cannot change is one of the chapters in my book. And when you accept what you cannot change, that alone is like a relief, but you can change your mindset around it, whatever it is. So that's very powerful. And my whole book and philosophy is about empowering yourself with choices. And even if they're not like physical choices or circumstantial choices, you can always create and have a choice within your mindset.
And it does seem like you almost have to do that also before you were to make a choice to leave if you need to. If it's a toxic situation and an unhealthy situation that you really realize that this really isn't going to be good for me in the end, I can't just talk my way out of it all the time in my own head. Like it does seem like you have to go through that, but I do have a choice about how I'm going to handle this. And then I can make the choice to leave if that's what I'm going to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. At the beginning of chapter 4, you say, are you waiting for the happiness fairy to appear? Do not hold your breath. How can we take more control over our own happiness?
Yeah, so that's actually part of what we were just talking about, that like you have the power to create that peace, that calm, that joy within you, because it's all up in your mind, right? And your heart. And so the happiness fairy is not some like magical fairy that's going to come and wave their magic wand and, bless you or, magically say, okay, you're going to be happy and in control and whatever your dreams are. It's not, don't wait for someone else or the fairy to come. You have to cultivate that and take empowered action yourself. And that's why, I've also included so many action steps at the end of each chapter so that readers who want to take charge of their life actually have tangible ways that they can start building better habits if they haven't already, and cultivate these habits and create sustainable, healthier habits so that you do have that inner joy. You don't have to work hard to be at joy or peace. You just are, because you're taking care of yourself. You have, healthy habits built into your daily routine. You have healthy relationships, a fulfilling career, regular physical activity, a mindfulness practice, you eat well, like all of these things. This is the holistic approach to my MAP method for you to embody, to practice and build healthy habits around, so that you take charge and become the happy, fulfilled person and not be sitting around waiting for that fairy to come.
It does seem like it is way easier to build habits when your life has a particular rhythm to it. But when something throws it off, you have to travel for work or, whatever might come along that throws it off, it makes it harder. What specific tips do you have for people who are trying to maintain habits or build habits, even in the midst of some volatility in their schedule?
Yeah, there's, ebb and flow to life, to work, to everything. So I say, don't give yourself a hard time if you have to miss certain, like your routine for a couple of days, or like even when you go on vacation, like, enjoy the vacation. Don't be so rigid and like, oh, but I have to do my workout or my mindfulness practice. I mean, those all make you feel good. So if you can do it, great. Because I know when I don't do it, I'm actually off. I don't do it because I feel it's healthy and, I have to do it. It's that I actually want to do it. But for people who, their schedules have thrown them off for a little bit, that's okay. If it's a long term, like weeks or long term, and you're not doing those healthy things, then you really then are going to start feeling, less motivated and not as energized and not as clear-minded probably. So then I would say just pick like one thing, not like all your routines, depending on how many routines you have, but what's the one thing that makes you feel the best? Is it, for me, it's movement and mindfulness. I have a TM practice every morning. And sometimes, since my TM is for transcendental meditation, for anyone who isn't familiar, and that's 20 minutes 2 times a day. And sometimes I don't have that time, but I'll definitely move my body and do mini meditation, for example. So you can just adapt to the different schedule and just keep 1 or 2 things that are short, sweet, and gonna give you that energy boost so that you don't fully fall off the wagon. But if it's just like for a few days or so, that's okay. Like, just go for it and enjoy whatever you're doing and don't give yourself a hard time. So I like to go by like the 80-20 rule, like 80% of the time, be on your schedule, eat well, do all the things that, make you feel good. And then that 20% of the time, be free to do whatever. But as long as the majority is taking care of, majority of the time is taking care of yourself, then, that's great. Just keep that up rather than it going from 80 to 0 and 0 for, a long time.
Yeah. I think that 80-20 rule is just so helpful for this in particular, but for a lot of things, but, because it's hard to be perfect in your wellness journey. Oh yeah, I do want to ask this question before we're done. I really was intrigued by how you brought learning into the picture in your book. How does learning impact well-being? And what are some of the successful approaches that you've seen companies take to really become that learning organization, to incorporate that?
Well, learning can mean lots of different things for, again, different people and organizations. So for organizations, it would be, learning, new skills, new skill sets for the job. But outside of the job too, what I encourage companies and leaders is to encourage employees, and just in general, I encourage my clients to learn different things that could be a hobby that's totally unrelated to work, that could just be for fun, and or skill sets that are for work, or something that is completely like, out of the norm for the person, and they just want to take explorative action. And the reason why this is important and helpful on their well-being journey is to not let life and just, your daily routines get stagnant. It's more about having fun and getting creative. And also, when you learn something new, talk about being mindful and present. You're very present when you're learning something new. There's no autopilot because you've never done that before, right? It's a new experience. It's like when you travel. The reason I love traveling, especially to new places, is that I'm so present because I've never been there before. Even when I go to the same places that I love, I'm still very present because it's easy to be very present because I'm not there often, or there's something new in that place that I'm experiencing. So I want to, embody it and absorb everything. And so when you learn something new, again, professionally or personally related, it's just an opportunity for you to have fun, to play, to enjoy, and to be really present. And then a bonus is you're learning something new, and that just adds to your repertoire of, your skills or your hobbies or whatever it is you've chosen.
So I really appreciate all of the things that you shared about your book. I'm also curious about Rise to Shine. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Rise to Shine was our little baby before I started Prana Naz. We opened the doors to our small school, nonprofit school in Haiti back in 2011. And we provide 3 meals a day, healthcare, and education to over 70 children who came from abject poverty. These poor children were found on the side of the street in mountaintops. They were lucky if they had a tent city that they were living in. I mean, without Rise to Shine, I'm not sure if these kids would have survived. And the teachers that we've employed and the cooks and all the employees of Rise to Shine are from the small town in Fon Parisien that we started this nonprofit. So we're helping the community, families, and the future of these children. So it's a very touching and heartfelt side company that we have developed. I developed it with some of my friends back again in 2011. We actually opened the doors on 11/11/11 and happened to be at 11:11 a.m. where we cut the ribbon to open. And it was not intentional. It just happened that way. So it was kind of really meaningful in that way. And it's a wonderful feeling to know that we're helping these children.
Wow, that's amazing. One more question before I ask you my last question. So this question is about you and how people can find your book and be in contact with you.
My book is on Amazon.com in all major retailers, Barnes and Noble, and most bookstores. And as far as finding me, my website is prananaz.com, which is my corporate wellness website. And then my personal website is nazbeheshti.com. I'm on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And you could just find me at Naz Beheshti. And Facebook, I'm Naz Beheshti Speaker.
Great. And we will link to all that in the show notes. But just a reminder for the audience, the book is Pause, Breathe, Choose. Become the CEO of your well-being. Okay, my last question for you. For those people in the audience who really want to have a voice of influence, what last piece of advice would you want to give to them today?
You have the power to choose to become the CEO of your well-being. And you could take action today by starting with one small healthy habit and building from there. And if you want to get my book, there's over 80 proven strategies and tools in there that could help you get started on your wellness journey to become the CEO of your well-being.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today and for being a voice of influence for our listeners today, Naz. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrea.